Welcome everyone to another podcast, and this time with a friend of both my husband and I, Chirag Jadhav. Chirag has been a friend from school, and actually, even Sudarshan and Chirag have played football for several years, and they live together
Yeah.
in the same community. Welcome, Chirag. So nice to have you.
So nice to see you guys.
Hello.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a long time. So where are you currently?
I actually just got back to Bangalore, but I leave tomorrow.
Where are you going?
So I'm going up to the mountains tomorrow, going to Uttarakhand.
No.
So I'm just doing a few courses there. So yeah, just back so I can take my summer clothes off and put my winter clothes back on and leave.
So wait, I have so many questions.
No, first I want to just clarify because you started off saying Chirag and I are quite close and we have played football and everything together. So why did I ask the question, where is he right now? That's not because I because I've lost in touch with him or something. It's just that he moves around a lot. So that was the reasoning behind the question, where are you right now?
Yeah, and that is exactly what we're going to be talking about. Chirag has been living a very different life than most of us. He has traveled, I want to ask you how many countries, but several countries, and worked many, many different jobs through that time. That would be my first question to you, actually. How many countries have you traveled to, and how many countries have you lived in?
I think I've kind of lost count with the number of countries I've traveled to. I don't know. I think it's
Lot of countries then.
yeah, like
It's
I
easier
don't
to
know,
say.
probably the north of 40, 45, something
Wow.
like that. But yeah, I've lost account. But I have lived again. I think living I classify into different spaces, like living short term versus living long term.
Hmm.
I've lived long term in I don't know in the US, the UK, India, Hong Kong. But short term, which is like probably 3 months or somewhere close to about 3 to 6 months, way more places. In Africa, in the Philippines. I just got back from Malaysia, so I was there for about a month and a half too. So yeah, it's just different places. And I think I've lived across quite a bit.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fantastic. I don't think I've been to like 2 or 3 countries, maybe. No, yeah. But most people have been to like less than 10 at least. At 45 plus is impressive. That's insane. How
Thanks.
that start? From where did that initial want or desire to travel and live in these different places start for you?
I think actually it has been an integral part of childhood. Because my dad used to work for the forestry services. So as kids, we would also move very often. Especially our summer breaks would generally be spent around the village, which is in Chikmagaluru, and around these spots, like mostly forest spots. And as a
Mhm.
kid, you are generally naive and you think this is what every kid did growing up until you figure that out. But then I think the first time I ever tried doing this was Mexico and Cuba. I spent about 2 months, and I think that's when I was like, "Oh, I could possibly do this for a while." And I think that's where it began.
How
So
old
that's
were
how
you?
everything came.
Sorry, how old were you when you went to Mexico and Cuba?
I think 2017, 21, 21, 22.
That's where it began
So
for you.
that's when it began. Yes. So it's
Mhm.
been a good 7 years. Things out. Yeah.
And is the majority of the countries you've traveled to in these last 7 years?
Yes, in the last seven
Wow.
years. So it's been like a very slow travel. So I like spending close to at least a month or two in each country so that I can kind of get a hang of the people, the culture and stuff.
Hmm. There must be at some point, I feel, during your travels that you're like, I don't want to stop doing this. I want to keep traveling, keep doing more of this. How or when did that start? Or how did that come about?
I think that got cemented when I did South America.
Hmm.
Hmm.
So just going around and just trying different places, doing different things in different places, and picking up odd jobs whilst I was there. And I'm like, hey, you think I can just work with you guys for a bit, in exchange for some food and stay whilst I'm traveling. So I think that's where it started. I was like, oh, maybe I could do this. And yeah, I think South America is where it all began.
Hmm. South America was the first time you said, uh, I will live here and work for you, help out with whatever you need, and then in
Exactly.
exchange you let me live, and then you help with food, right? They provide food. Is that what you were
Yeah,
saying? That's the exchange you had.
correct. So I would walk up to hostels or the hostels that I'm staying at, and I'd be like, hey, do you mind if I just stay with you guys for a bit? And then in exchange for food and stay, just so I think I could then explore the city or the place that I was in for a lot longer. So that's where it began. And I was like, oh, if I can do this, I could probably start asking other people who could allow me to do this as well. And that's how it began. Just randomly walking up to places that I stayed at or places I knew of, and then just asking them if I can work with them for food and stay. And they were more than happy to accommodate me. So yeah, that's how it began.
Incredible. I mean, that this sounds so scary in my head if I think about going to somebody's house, like, can I stay? I mean, I guess I'm thinking, correct me if I'm wrong, it all started from the desire of just, I really want to explore this place. And what's the worst thing that could happen if I did ask this question? Like, tell me what was your thinking in your mind when you started traveling and staying and doing these different kinds of jobs while you were there?
I think exactly like you mentioned, it started from the place of, hey, I would want to get to know this place a
Yeah.
little more than just the surface.
Mm.
Like, especially, I think another added advantage I had in South America was that I'm brown.
Mm.
So I can get away looking local.
Yeah.
Uh, so it was the desire to make my Spanish better, to pass away as a local, to try and be there without people realizing, oh, this guy is not from here because the way he speaks. But it was funny because every time I was, say, in Cuba or in South America or in Mexico, if I walked by myself, nobody would sell anything to me. But then if I walked with another white person, they're like, oh, this guy looks like he's from here, but he's definitely not from here because he has a white person with him. So they'd constantly sell me things. And on the same road the next day, if I just go back, they would not recognize for me as someone from outside. So I think the desire there was to make sure that, I have got to pass this. I have to make sure
Mm.
that, I should be able to talk Spanish good enough so that they don't recognize me even when I open my mouth. Because that was
Mm.
one of the first advices that I was given. They were like, you look like you're local, but just make sure you don't open your mouth enough. I was like, okay. But yeah, to get rid of that feeling, and I think the time I was in South America was also politically there was a bit of an unrest.
Mm.
So I just wanted to experience that, like, have talked to the locals about the political unrest and see what it's like, because not a lot of them can speak English, especially like the locals in a lot of the smaller places. So yeah, so that was the desire, just to be there, understand them, eat what they're eating. Because a lot of the times, as a tourist, you are sold things that generally a lot of locals eat. So the desire, like you said, to try and get to know the place better, which is through people and the food,
Mm.
and mostly the language. So that's how it started.
Um, a couple of things I want to bring or talk about is that the first one, it happens in the US as well. We can easily pass for any South American person,
Mostly
mostly
Mexican.
Mexican. So
Yeah.
a lot of the times when I walk into a Mexican restaurant in the US, the people there assume that I'm Mexican and start talking to me in Spanish. And then I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're saying. And immediately their first reaction is, oh, this person has left Mexico, come to US, forgotten the heritage, and now acting all American. And then I have to like clarify, no, I'm actually Indian, I don't speak
I think
Spanish.
they would have guessed from your accent.
Uh, After, but initially, as soon as they look at me and they start to put me to a table, they just speak Spanish. So
Yeah.
that's
If you say no Espanol, then they judge you. Like
then,
you're
exactly, yeah. Then they're judging me. So it happens. It happens here also. And and the second thing that you mentioned was very interesting is that you. So generally, when there is a political unrest or any sort of a political problem going on in a country, people are trying to flee that country, not trying to go in to kind of experience or witness what that is. So that's a very interesting thing that you said, that you actually went there to kind of talk to the locals and get their perspective. Because yes, most of the times we are just seeing the news. And just to switch a little bit, I wanted to know, like, what are some of the odd jobs or some of the most challenging jobs that you have faced, and maybe you reconsidered your position about, I don't think I should do this. Maybe I think I want to go and live in Bangalore in a comfortable life. Did that ever happen?
Unfortunately, not yet. I mean, fortunately for
I
me,
don't
not
think it's
yet.
unfortunate
Touch
at all.
wood.
I think it's great.
Yeah,
You
it's
should not say it
great. Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. Fortunately for me, it hasn't happened yet. So touch wood, because most of the times, these odd jobs are from a point of building the skill that I've always wanted to build. So it was mostly being like, hey, I think if I do this job, I think it would help me better my skill. Which is
Right.
say even like working in a kitchen, because I wanted to get better at just being able to cook.
Yep.
So just the basics and stuff like that, right? So it has always been from a point where, hey, I want to improve the skill, and the only way I can improve this is by doing this job.
Right.
Uh, so which is why I think I still haven't had like a regret. But yeah, I think I've been super fortunate that way.
yeah, and there's nothing
And
odd about these jobs, I'm guessing. I think you have some incredible job. Why don't you tell us what are the different jobs you've
uh,
had?
yeah, like it's been as random. I think the most common ones that I generally do whilst I'm traveling is I teach scuba diving. So that is always there. Like I'm freelance, I pick up so like Philippines and Malaysia. So that was pretty nice. Like I could just go pick things up. I also teach English, so that has been something which is pretty good for me. Before that, I've worked a bit of carpentry. I've worked in a kitchen. Uh, I've worked as a photographer in the mountains and as a wedding photographer.
Mm.
And then I've worked as a pizzeria because I've always wanted to work and learn how to make good pizzas. Uh, I've worked odd jobs in Africa, which is mostly around building sustainable practices. So a lot of human-animal conflict work in Africa. And then a lot of hostels, shoe stores, a suit shop. And all these are from a place of kind of understanding where, like, for example, the suit shop was to just understand how to dress better in a suit. Uh, Even the shoe store, because I really loved shoes. Like, what makes a good leather shoe, and what is it that people look for in a good shoe, and stuff like that. So these things happened like very early on, very just curious, being curious about these things. The pizza thing happened very randomly because I saw this old man in his pizza truck. He was from Naples, and I was like, hey, that's a cool thing. So I approached him and I was like, I just, want to spend some time learning how to do good pizzas. So we would go around with his pizza truck making pizzas on his food truck. So that was, again, like I said, it's just really things that I've always been curious or a skill that I wanted to add. So it's just been things like that.
Your resume must be like 10 pages long, I think. It's just too many skills.
That's amazing,
I know,
right?
that's great.
I'm thinking this is possible because of your personality, Chirag. I mean, I remember we met after several years during our wedding when we met there, and we spoke as if no time had passed since the last time we spoke. And Chirag is just such a good conversationalist and so easy to speak with. And I also noticed at a reception, you you and your brother both were suited up so nicely. Did you
Right,
right?
right.
And
Now I know
we
that.
talked about that and like how amazingly these two have
Yeah.
you know
They were
dressed
looking
up.
sharp.
Oh.
They were looking very sharp.
And now I know where the skill
I
comes from.
yes, where it comes from, right? So which is the thing. And I mean, again, the idea was it's always been like, hey, I just want to learn the skill better
Mhm.
and find an avenue to support the skill, which has now ended up resulting maybe in looking sharp. But the thing was always like, hey, but how do they do this? Because inherently suiting up for us is not, it's not a first thing that you would learn. Like I remember wearing overbagged blazers in school. Like I think you guys remember as well. Like I have no sense how to wear it, what fits you perfectly and stuff like that. So I think this happened when I moved to England, and I'm like, these suits look so good on them. Because I think the first place was Milan actually. When I went there, if you guys have never been, you should go to Milan just to look at the way people dress, because you can look at them and tell if this person is from Milan or not just by looking at them. And that's how well people are dressed. And I was blown. I was like, wow, these guys are really well dressed, and it comes naturally to them because that's how they've been raised. Whereas for us, we're so used to wearing bigger suit, but not perfectly well-fitting ones. And yeah, and then I was like, oh, I need to learn what it takes. Like, why are we wearing oversized suits and not something that fits us? And that's how it began. Yeah.
I think that oversized suit, for example, comes from a point of cost cutting and nothing else. You just,
Yes,
when
it
you are
is.
young, they give you an oversized coat or pant, and then you can wear that for the next 5 years. And there's no need to buy new clothes. So I think that's where it comes from.
Exactly. And for someone, when I moved, I had a lot of oversized clothing with me. I was like, it's the same mentality. I was like, oh, I will grow into it. I'm already 21, but
Exactly.
I will grow into it. But yeah, I'm just realizing that, hey, maybe I should start buying clothes that fit me.
Wow.
But
And
yeah.
I can only imagine the kind of perspectives that you have created in yourself just from travel and meeting people and being in all these different environments. And I'm curious, how has being a nomad, living a nomadic life, living in different countries, different cultures, languages, shaped you as a person and your perspective on things in general?
I think I have now come to decide that if I haven't lived in a place for not as long enough to kind of pass away by speaking or just I like just having a basic conversation, I cannot be entitled to opinions about the place.
Mhm.
So I think that has been like one of my biggest takeaways that hey, like it's really hard to tell what people are going through until unless you've actually been there. And I think it's in this world, it's so easy to form opinions that, oh, yeah, yeah, how can they do this? Or how are they allowed to do this and stuff? But I think it's kind of, well, like I've come to realize that without not being in that place or having lived there or having gone through what these people have gone through, I cannot form the opinions of anything really. So, and I think that has changed the perspective of like, okay, like whatever's going on can go on until unless I can go there and figure out why and what. And sometimes this doesn't even happen. Like, like a lot of the times you're like, hey, this is supposed to, you're supposed to have these opinions. You're supposed to decide, well, what they're doing is not correct, what they're doing is not right. But then I have kind of, I think the perspective of being able to go to different places has changed in kind of me taking in that, hey, maybe I should refrain until I know what they're going through or until I know what they've been through. So I think that's like the biggest change.
Uh, that's very great. That's great, actually. Yeah. You brought up about differences. Yes, now we are more different. We are always trying to find faults in other people and all of that. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you probably have this perspective over most people, is there a common trait that you find amongst like Europeans or Americans or Indians or anywhere else where like, oh, doesn't matter how they are, but we are all at some point still similar as human beings. And okay, fine, one person is black, one person is white, brown, doesn't matter, but at the core, everybody is still similar in one regard. Have you found anything like that?
Let me think. I think the first thing that comes to my mind from all my travels and interaction with the local people is actually how nice humans can be and just be humane.
Right.
And this has been the same irrespective. Like Africa, India, South America, North America, Europe, anywhere, I think people, if you're nice to them, people are willing to help and go extra lengths to be nice to you. And all it takes is just being nice. And it makes your travel so much easier. Like I've crashed in random people's place. And it's mainly because I'm like, hey, just having a basic conversation, saying, how are you guys doing? What's this? Can you suggest me where I could stay? Or this is too expensive. Do you mind if I just crash in your front yard? And they're like, yeah, yeah, just come, just stay with us. And I think this might be the cheat code, but I carry a pack of spices with me. So I can just make something like quickly cook something Indian for them. But the question, like Sudhu asked, is the biggest thing that I see is people are just nice. Um, and all it takes is just you being warm and nice to them,
Right.
and people are being back to the basics. They forget everything that's wrong with the world, and they're like, yeah, cool. We will be nice to you because you seem very warm and nice. And this I found to be the constant across the world.
Amazing. How
Yeah.
nice. I
Yeah.
mean, everybody has that just being human, being nice, being
Exactly.
having nice conversations, helping each other out. Like that is true
Yeah.
no matter where you go. It's amazing. I'd love to hear, and I'm sure people would love to hear some really fun or crazy experiences you've had. I know you shared a couple of them when we met a few months ago in India. What is some very interesting story that you would love to share from one of your travels?
Um, so this is the thing, right? Like I think I remember how the same cultural things that you do here can be very different in a country. And this is what traveling does to you. You think, oh, well, hide and seek is hide and seek everywhere in the world,
Hmm.
right? So I lived with some of the tribes in Zimbabwe and was doing human-animal conflict work. And a lot of the times, like I love climbing trees, but these kids grew up climbing trees. So they are as good as apes on these trees, whereas I'm like, oh, I need to be careful. I need to know where I'm doing, what I'm doing, right? So anything of that sort, these kids were so good until when they suggested we play hide and seek. I was like, now I'm gonna whoop all your kids. Like, I'm gonna crash you guys because I'm really good at hide and seek. Because I grew up in an area where 40 of us would play hide and seek with 7 roads and 2 main roads. So you could hide in any of these roads, right? I was like, I am such a pro that I'm gonna beat these kids up in hide and seek. So I was all ready. I was like, with the inflated ego, I was like, now there is something that I can be good at. And I mean, I'm gonna ask you guys, did you guys play hide and seek growing up?
Yeah, I did, and I was very bad at it. So I would, as much as possible, I would encourage my friends to not play that because I would lose immediately. I was on the opposite spectrum of you. I was very bad at it. So, and I was also very scared because if I was the one who was supposed to catch people, I was very scared because sometimes suddenly somebody would, surprise me from the back and I would freak out. So I'm like, for all those reasons, I'm not playing hide and seek.
Yeah, I have played it too, but maybe not as much.
I think Sudarshan was telling me that he's played hide and seek and he was kind of spooked. So
Yes.
which means like when you were seeking, so
Yes.
how did the game go? So was there one person seeking? Were there two people seeking?
No, it was just me, I think.
Yeah, and then the rest of them hide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Was
yeah,
it?
exactly.
Okay. So this is the same hide and seek that I played growing up, right? So we're like, oh, this is the game tomorrow. I'm ready. And when the morning, all the kids came, like 10 of them came up to me. They were like, yeah, let's go play. And I was like, yeah, let's go. Today is the day, right? So I was so set. So we ended up, of course, uh, going to the bush, which is generally the forest where the tribes live. And I was like, perfect. So which one is gonna seek? Let's hide. And they're like, what do you mean, which one is gonna seek? I was like, yeah, hide and seek. You know, how do we decide who is seeking? It's like, no, that's not how we play here. We decide who is hiding. So one hides, the rest of us seek. So the idea basically is that all the kids seek that one person hiding. So you wait for a good 15, 20 minutes, and the kid just runs into the bush, right? So he just runs as far as he can. And after 20 minutes, we start seeking this one person that's hiding. And this is so important for the tribes because this is how you learn how to track. So use basically the footprints of this person that has ran into the bush. And as kids, you start doing this from the age of 3 or 4. So by the time you're 10 or 12, you know everybody in the village by their footsteps. So you
Huh.
can tell everybody apart. And this is so important because eventually most of these kids end up becoming forest guards or work with the wildlife. So they now know how to track an animal that can go however far it wants. So if they're tracking lions, they know that, hey, this is the lion. I'm not looking at any other footsteps. This is exactly the lion that I'm looking for.
Mhm.
And they can track this lion for ages. And it's such an integral part of their culture that, it's like if they can't play hide and seek, they have lost the ability to track.
Mm.
Uh, and there's and of course, I was so bad at it. I'm like, hey, this is the same footstep. I
Yeah,
really cannot tell the difference
right.
between. And the kids are so good. I mean, of course, they were trying to help and make me understand better. They were like, yeah, you see, this footstep has more, there's a person who's putting more weight to the left. There's a person who's putting a lot more
Oh
weight to the
my
right.
God.
The
Wow.
finger spacing is a lot better, and stuff like this. And I just realized, I was like, wow, this is, we all play the same game in the name of hide and seek, but it just is a completely different purpose. And it was amazing. I was like, kids, you've got to teach me how to track now because it's such a cool feature to have. Of course, I was very bad at it. I never got to tracking anywhere close to as good as these kids were. Like I remember in a couple days after playing hide and seek, the family that I stayed with, their goats went missing. And the guy in the house, Brent, tracked them down, I think about 45 kilometers over a period of 3 days.
Wow.
So the mum and the kid goat went missing, and I think it went to a village, 3 villages after. And they're all like usually placed 10, 15 kilometers between each of them. So we found these goats, and it's incredible. I was like, wow, how could you track them for so long?
Huh.
But yeah, and that's where hide and seek comes into play. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just curious to understand this. So, if you go to another country, you have a lot of ways and means to learn the language, or at least to a point where you can have a basic conversation with them, because you have so many tools available and everything. But if you go to like a tribe, they usually have their own sets of languages and dialects and everything.
Mm.
Was language ever a barrier for you when you especially went deep into the forest and lived with the tribe?
Luckily, again, because these guys have to learn English to be a guide,
Oh,
so
okay.
it kind of helps. But also, I think it goes both ways. If they can speak English, it hinders my ability to learn the local language because I can converse with
Right,
them in English.
right.
So it's kind of a boon and a bane where I'm like, "Oh, no, I really wish you couldn't speak English. So then I have no choice.
Okay.
But that's the beauty of humans, right? Like the sign language, even if you think you cannot make do with the language, everyone understands the basic.
Mm, right.
And it's yeah, it is. And I mean, fortunately, again, the language has never been a barrier. And I think I was more than happy to learn their language, which is again basically just comes by practicing and trying to repeat the things that they say. But yeah, it is for now, it hasn't been that bad yet.
Yeah, really, really cool experiences. I mean, I feel like I'm sure you have like a zillion stories to share from all your travels, and I wish we could listen to all of them. Maybe every time we meet. Um, this is a very interesting question that came to my mind. If you could pick one job for the rest of your life, would you choose any of the things that you've done, or that's something that's never going to happen?
Good question, actually, because it hasn't happened yet,
Yeah.
but I cannot write it off in the future. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's really hard to pick that one job because I'm still on the lookout for skills and trying to make
Mm.
them better. But again, I can never write off because I really enjoy teaching. So I might end up teaching in the long term. But having said that, for now, can't pick one yet.
You don't have to. That's the best part. You are multi-talented with a 10-page resume, likely. So you don't need to choose one. That's awesome. Where I guess I'm open if you have questions. But one thing that's coming to mind, a lot of people love travel. If they want to live a nomadic life or a digital nomad, I think is a big term right now, live anywhere and work for the sake of slow travel, like you said, and spending enough time in a place, understanding the cultures, people, eating the food, learning the language, that whole experience. If somebody listening to this is like, that's something I want to try doing, what would you tell them?
Um, Same again, like try and build skills. Of course, I think it's really different if you have the opportunity to work from home with the job you already have. So I think that easily opens up your avenue to maybe even just go to a different place,
Mm,
live there for a month or two and see how it goes.
mm,
Just so see how you like it. But then if you don't have this opportunity to work from different places, and you would maybe, I don't know, like I think I think financial independency plays a very big part. So having that, of course, helps, right? So if you have that and you don't mind volunteering in a place, I definitely recommend this. Like I feel people are more than willing to employ you if you are willing to work for them for food and stay instead of seeking a skill, like seeking a pay for your skill.
mm,
And especially if you're really young, who's now growing up, it doesn't have to be a different country. Just pick a city that you've never been to, or pick a city where they don't speak your language. Just go to this place. Especially if you have just graduated from university, I would say like just go explore these places. Just live there, just so you know what it is to be out of your comfort zone. And I think this helps massively for anywhere or any step you take in your future. Like be as simple as, for example, moving abroad to study. Uh, just just doing this a little beforehand could easily help the process of adapting, right? So and there are various platforms like Workaway, World Packers. So these are apps that helps facilitate your ability to volunteer
mm.
around the world. And I think I always suggest, I'm like, hey, just start with volunteering and then build skills. And if you want to make this a lifestyle, make sure you have enough skills that people appreciate to have on you if they want to host you. And when you're good, I think the money comes in. So
Yeah.
yes, I think that's what I would suggest.
Great tips and resources as well, on how to find places to volunteer. That's awesome.
Have you ever had a very interesting entrance into a country like at customs or immigration or anywhere where people are just so confused about what you're doing for a living or why you are coming to their country?
Right.
Because So have you had any fun or interesting experiences?
To think of it, actually, most of the times I go there and find the job, so I'm not really aware once
Okay.
I'm at the border.
Okay.
But because I have an Indian passport, and mostly if I take the road to get into a country, and that's when people are like, wait, we actually don't know what to do with this. Because
Mm.
a lot of the times you would fly in, so most airports are equipped. But like I think it was Peru, and I was there at midnight.
Oh.
So of course you have the youngest person working there
Mhm.
allowed on the midnight shift
Sure.
because nobody wants to lose their sleep, right? And he looked at my passport and he was like, wait, we haven't got this one my entire time being here. So I actually don't know what to do with this.
Mm.
So you'll have to wait because I'll have to call my supervisor who might be sleeping and I'll get screwed for it now. And then I think that's the closest I've come to not knowing what to do with me. And it's always, I think it's usually that, when I'm going by road and they're like, oh, wait, we don't know what to do with your passport. So let's just look through and because you don't have a Peruvian visa, like I would have let you through if you had a Peruvian visa, but because you don't, but you have a US or a UK visa. So I don't
Mm.
know what the procedure is. So they'll have
Uh,
to call up someone and then figure out. But usually that.
did they let you
Uh,
in?
yeah, but I think we had to go through an entire bus of 60 people, and that's
Okay.
how long it took.
Oh.
But again, I mean, nothing to blame them because it's this one small checkpost which
Mm.
is between Ecuador and Peru. And not a lot of the time. I think the number of Indian tourists visiting has now increased. But 2017, 18, there were not as many.
Hmm.
So it took them a while. But then, yeah, he was like, oh, you know what? Your visa is only 5 months. Your UK visa is going to expire in 5 months, but we require you to have 6 months or more. I was
Oh.
like, no, please don't send me back now. They're like, yeah, okay. You know what? I can't give you 3 months, but I can give you 2 months. I was like, yeah, that's great. That's plenty. People are nice. People are like, okay, like I understand that you're coming here. So yeah, usually just that.
Cool. This is great. I guess the last question I want to ask before wrapping up, what's been your favorite city/country to have traveled or lived in?
Wow, it's like asking me what's your favorite song. It changes.
Okay,
No,
what's
It
your
changes.
current one?
Mm.
Or give
Um,
me your top three.
yeah, if I have to go back and not leave for a while,
Hmm.
I think having lived in Hong Kong, I would want to go back purely because, again, not a lot of people realize this, but 70% of Hong Kong is uninhabitable,
Hmm.
because it's just mountains and forests.
Oh.
And you don't realize this because every time you do Hong Kong, you just get this massive skyline, right? So
Yeah.
it's still, I think, one of the few places, having lived in multiple um, different cities, I think Hong Kong is the one that comes close to where I could do the mountains and the beach within a day. And I think that I really love. And all of this on public transport, like I'm big on public transport. So this is, I think, the one city that comes close to. And of course, if I say home, I think I will be biased. So I'm going to keep India out of it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
Maybe the Okavango Delta in Botswana.
Mm.
So this delta again, like I lived with the tribes there, and it's not even every day, like every time of the day is a story. You're like, wait, what? This happens here? This is
Ah,
what you guys do?
like culture
So
shocks.
yeah, this is wait, what? This is what you guys do? Like imagine between 11 o'clock to 3 o'clock, because the sun is so strong,
Mm.
you just sleep during the day at this time, because it's so hot and you can't function. And majority of this time is spent as a community sharing stories whilst you're looking at clouds. This is what everybody does. So you're just cloud watching between 11 to 3. As kids, you would look, oh, that cloud looks like a rabbit. That cloud looked like a dragon is spitting fire. So this is what we did as adults. And it was so fun because you're just like being back as kids. So I think the Delta was definitely the Okavango Delta, something I would definitely go back to. I'm trying to think. Maybe Medellin. where Pablo Escobar, I think, infamously is from Medellin. So that's the city, very similar to Bangalore. Uh, it's called the city of eternal spring. So it's like 24 degrees throughout the year. And it's like a massive valley, so it's just surrounded by mountains. So maybe that, and I think so limited, but I would choose a few other places as well. But I think off my head, top three would probably be these. Yeah. And I think you guys are very close to Colombia. So if you have some time off, you should definitely fly down to Colombia. And I think it's a different place altogether. Very different from what you see on the TV.
We definitely want. It's on our list for sure. And
I think most places are like that, quite different than what we see on the TV. Because if they just show that everything is great in this place, everybody is nice, you don't get many views on TV. It always has to be breaking news, and something has to be breaking all the time. So that's pretty much, I think you can say that to most places also. Which is why I think that is not the way you judge a country. And I think what you do is definitely a way to actually go and live with them and find out what these people are and how they go about with their lives.
Yeah, never judge until you're literally living there.
Yeah.
And understand what's going on and learn that language, all of that. That was such a beautiful thing, like interesting stuff that you shared.
Especially as Indians, right? And I think we are also like people judges in the US, especially if you go inside. And the image that they have of India is the more undeveloped.
Yes.
Oh, do you go to work on elephants and stuff like that?
Right.
And of course, I mean,
right.
And for someone who's come from that place, they're like, what are you guys talking about? Like some of our cities are way more developed than some of your cities.
That's true.
And things like that. Like I'm sure you've already gone through this, and I think that's a good measure to not let us do the same to the other cities.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or other countries, right? Yeah.
People, I think the most common one that we get is your English is surprisingly good.
They are shocked when they find out that you can speak. But the fun fact is there are more English-speaking Indians in India than in the whole of US.
Is that because of population?
No, also shows that most people in India also speak English.
Yeah.
And not just a local language that they or again like the Indians that they show on American TV shows always do not their heads like this. And
you want to talk like this?
Yeah, that's a question I get asked so many times when I'm talking to people. There are two things. One is like, oh, your English is very good. And then the second one is, you don't have the quintessential Indian head bobbing like this. I'm like, no, not all. That's what they show on TVs, and that's all you know.
Yeah.
So
Simpsons has ruined it for us a little bit.
I mean, a
lot of stereotypes.
lot of Indian shows. I mean,
Yeah.
American shows that have Indians, they portray them. We are always working as IT tech professionals.
Yes.
We are always having this head bobbing thing, and then our English is good. That's all it is.
And then we have that thick, the accent that they're used to is the thick, like, oh, what you doing? Why are you here? Like nobody speaks like that from our generation.
I mean, urban India doesn't. Rural
Urban India doesn't,
could be
of course.
questionable. I mean, again, that also is
Of course.
different depending on where in India you are, because India is so diverse.
Yeah,
exactly. But then again,
yeah, go ahead.
As in the folks who come to the US would not have this, at least from our generation, because I think, like you said, urban India, and like Sudarshan mentioned that I think we are the biggest English-speaking populace in the world.
Right.
Yeah,
correct. The bottom line I was just going to say is don't ever judge a country of people based on what you see on TV. That's never accurate.
Exactly.
It never tells the entire story. It's not at all accurate to what is actually going on there. And also, I think that happens with most things nowadays. Context is a key, very important thing, because a lot of us don't generally read the entire thing. We just give the highlight of a page and like, oh, so and so happened in so and so country, and then people are just they don't read the entire thing. They just think that, oh, that's it. So I'll associate this country with this particular headline, and that's it. I don't want to go through and read what are they actually going through. So it's very easy to sit at this side and judge people. but it's very hard to actually see what they're going through.
I mean, that's the harder part. The easy thing is to put countries into buckets, right?
Exactly, yeah.
India as a bucket equals,
Head bobbing.
where
Yeah,
perhaps
exactly.
bathrooms and toilets are not available, don't have access. That's maybe true for really rural places, but that's changed a lot. Like India is so much more developed now.
Exactly.
But like, yeah, people like this, whatever you hear about a certain country, any country, you put that into a bucket and you form an opinion based on that, which is, I guess, I don't completely blame people, but I think knowing this information is that you will have skewed biases about people and countries because you don't have the full picture is important. Like I think that's important for people to know and kind of have some benefit of doubt. Like, you know what, you could be completely wrong about this entire country and entire
Exactly.
class of people. So
And also, I think
Yes.
every country has its own problems. There's no one perfect
Of
country.
course.
So we can sit here and talk about another country and say that they're wrong in this place. They should do this better. They should be like us. But then we are doing something fundamentally wrong that they can point their finger at us as well. So yeah, I think we should get the context right, and also should not be so easy at judging people and give them some sort of a benefit of the doubt, and because they are also dealing with their own stuff.
Exactly, yeah. And I think, yeah, very true. And I think it's very easy to, like you said, put people in buckets or to judge them. And I think being empathetic also means that, yeah, cool, it's just don't look at it just this, but also look at the bigger picture. And yeah, which is why I encourage people to go around and see different parts, just so you form an opinion for yourself and not go by the popular narrative.
Yeah, and another very important thing about travel, which I personally find that is you start appreciating what all you have once you go to another
Exactly.
country, and then
Yeah.
like for very simple example, in the US, if you just turn the tap, you get hot water. Most people who are living in the US don't appreciate that because they don't know the hardships of other countries to get hot water. It's a very basic, simple thing.
Yeah.
But it's so easy to get those here in the US. I'm just giving a US example because that's where we have lived for the last few years.
Yeah.
So when we go to any country, even a developed country, we are like, oh, this works like this. Okay, I have taken that for granted for so long. I think that perspective you can get only from travel, even not necessarily traveling to the extent that you are doing, like spend a few months. Even if you just go and travel, you start to realize that, oh, I think I should start being more appreciative and being more, grateful and show gratitude to what I have, because it's not easily available for other people also. So I think that's a very important thing to have.
Very true. Yeah. I definitely encourage people to, again, not spend 1 or 2 months, but just spend some time in a place which can put you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yes.
And opens
and
up
I
your
think
mind, right?
it opens up. Yeah. It's just like I said, it's just like fireworks in your brain. You're like, wait, what? This could also happen. This could also happen. Yeah.
Yeah, our thinking can be so limited because we have specific experiences based on our current, where we have lived in the last few years and our experiences. The more people you meet, the more you travel, like you're like, oh, like you can be like one you said, appreciate what you have, but also have different perspectives or like, okay, that's a whole other lifestyle. Like mine is not the only thing. Like I feel it makes you humble. Like at least I felt that.
True.
I'm just this one dot here, like literally, and then there's like so many people having so many different kinds of experiences, lives, and trauma, even difficult situations. So yeah, it's very humbling and it opens up your mind, broadens your perspectives a lot, definitely. And you prove to us that it's possible to travel without having to spend huge amounts of money. There's definitely so many ways, and we probably won't get into that. But one tip you said, I want to do that at some point. Reach out to someone and offer to volunteer and travel. But of course, you're saying if people are able to and can afford to, financially in their health, they should travel. Would you say that?
100%. I think if you are, especially whilst you're younger, because I think it's easier to be a lot more flexible when you're younger.
Yeah.
So definitely do it. Uh, Hit random people up and say, hey, we are coming to this place, and we saw that you have this amazing restaurant. Would it be possible for us to work there with you for a week just so we can learn how you do this?
Yeah.
And I think 90% of the people won't turn it down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They're like,
right.
yeah, sure, just come by. Yeah.
No, those are great points actually. Like another advantage when if you want to do this when you're young is that nobody is waiting on you to provide anything for them. You're not responsible yet for other people. Nobody is dependent on
Exactly.
you, so
Yeah.
you can basically just travel and do whatever you want at that point. And the second thing was, which you briefly mentioned, was getting out of the comfort zone. I think a lot of people, I'm also guilty of this, is if I know that I have to do this and I know that that's the right thing, sometimes I hold myself back from doing it because it's uncomfortable, and I am safe in the comfort of my home or wherever I am at that point. So I don't want to get out of that. But just as simple as sending a message to somebody saying that, okay, I'm interested in volunteering in your restaurant or whatever. The other issue that also people might be a little hesitant to do that is because of the fear of rejection. They don't like if somebody responds and saying, sorry, I don't want to entertain anybody right now. Please don't email me or anything like that. They don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
So that's another reason people don't try. But like you said, people will be very surprised as to how many people will say, yes, you can please come, as long as they're truly interested in learning the skill and the craft and not just
Exactly.
to make money. I think
Exactly.
people will, when they find genuine people like that, they're willing to give them a chance.
Yeah, very true. Like, I think if you genuinely are interested in something, people will go lengths
Exactly.
to make sure you are treated well and you get to learn, especially if they are passionate about it and you are passionate about it. They're like, yeah, please just come, and we will make sure you get the bigger pie from us than what we will get from you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Amazing. This was awesome. I did not realize an hour passed by. This
Wow, really? An hour?
Oh wow.
Wow, I didn't realize that.
Oh, that was so good. Yeah, it was great.
This
Great
is
conversations.
fantastic.
I love this.
I
Yes.
enjoyed it as well. No, thank you for
Yes.
sharing that.
Yeah.
I mean, um, so much to learn from this conversation. And I guess we also love travel, but definitely not in the same way that you travel. But we're getting so much like of how to travel, what things to keep in mind. This was really interesting. Thank you, Chirag, for coming on.
No, yeah, thank you so
Yes.
much. I'm very
Yeah.
glad. Yeah, like always willing to share. And also, I think it's special because I grew up with you guys, especially Sudarshan. I would see Rachna only in school, but I grew up with Sudarshan, so it's always nice to have these things. And it's amazing that you guys are doing this. I was so looking forward to doing this. So I'm very happy and I'm glad that you guys are doing this. And I hope you get as many guests as possible just to have a different perspective on life.
That is the goal.
That is
actually.
the goal, and this was awesome.
Yeah. For people who love to travel and want that kind of nomadic lifestyle, or if they're just curious, like what is that like? I think this will be very interesting to them.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. So, yeah, where should people follow you? Are you active
Yeah.
on any of the social media?
How do they reach out to you if they want to ask you to ask you if they could volunteer for you, perhaps, or the other way around?
Exactly.
I am active, but also not very active because for the very reason that Sudarshan mentioned that I want to stay off my phone, and I've found that Instagram does keep me hooked. But you can find me at I am Chirag Jadhav, which is my name, Chirag Jadhav. I am, and here I post things, but you can always reach out. Anybody can reach out on if they would want to, like how to go about this, even if they just want to volunteer for 15 days or a month, and how and when they could do this, how to do this. More than willing to help. Always willing to help, and yeah, just help with anything that they want.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
So yeah, thanks.
accommodating us in your busy schedule.
Yeah.
That was not a joke. That was a sincere, sincere thing I mentioned. But yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, of course, we'll have all your information, all of Chirag's information in the description.
Right.
So, I mean,
Yes.
your Instagram mainly. So,
Yes.
if anyone
Super.
wants to have a chat, or ask questions,
Yeah.
reach out to him.
Yeah.
All right. Bye bye,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Chirag.
Bye.